So I just wanted to talk about for a second, maybe how to, in the last week's video, I talked about, when you're studying abroad and how, wherever you are with your host country, you want to make sure that you are finding ways and taking steps to transition to a local. But I know that if you're like most study abroad students, just like most students in general, you're going to want to spend some time traveling. And so there are going to be points throughout your semester where you are going to be a tourist. And so I just wanted to sort of talk about how to not be a bad tourist. So it's interesting because a lot of the things that I talked about in the other video are also relevant here. But the very first thing is it's just like anything else. Like you want to assimilate as quickly as you can. And I know that that's kind of weird because like if you're only going to be in a place for 4 or 5 days, like you're like, well, I'm only here for a short time, but it doesn't matter. Like you can do quick assimilation, right? So it just means like figuring out beforehand, like most people, there are some daredevils out there, but most people, like they don't just go to a place without researching it. So, before you actually go to whatever your destination is that you're going to be traveling to, when you are a tourist, you want to make sure that you research it. You kind of understand what the current climate is in terms of, what's going on there. How are people sort of getting along? What are the kind of big news stories that are happening right then and there? Like what are some of the cultural norms, just so that you're kind of up to speed to that. And so that's going to help you to be able to understand, like, I need to quickly assimilate into this. This is how I need to be behaving while I'm in this place. The other thing that I would say as well is that, this is definitely much more relevant for people who are traveling throughout Europe or traveling, in other places outside the US, because again, we're a huge country and we don't necessarily have like the interconnection of like the public transportation and the rail systems and all of that. But another thing that you can do as a good tourist is to sort of understand how it works when you are on any type of transportation. So, I can tell you particularly, like someone who lived in London for years. Obviously, London is, one of the, biggest countries in the world or biggest cities in the world. Am I crazy? One of the biggest cities in the world that people always want to visit. And, the tube is a bit of a battle, just like a lot of other public transportation. But it's just that, like the way that it works is that, I mean, it was fun for me. Like, I actually like it. I think it fit with my personality, how like at rush hour and like at different times people are like, pushing each other and they're doing all of this very kind of passive aggressively, right? Like very British passive aggressive. But it's like, it's just like the thrill of it, that people would do that. Obviously, if you were in a place like New York, sometimes people get like that, but also too, you have to worry like, is someone gonna like, pull out something and hurt me? You don't have to worry about that in London, usually. But it's like the thrill of it if that's your day-to-day life. But for tourists, like, one of the main things, and I know this happens in a lot of cities, it's like you need to understand, like, what does it mean, like when you're getting on the escalator? Do you need to be standing on the right side or the left side? Are people going to be walking up which side? You need to understand that if you want to be a good tourist, don't be that person who is standing on the wrong side of the escalator while people are trying to move. The locals are trying to move within their daily life. You're on vacation. I got it. I understand, but you're also in my way. So it's like, please don't be that person when you're on vacation as well. You want to be a good tourist in that way. Also, too, something that I call the third leg, is, God love them. I know people love their wheelie bags, but those can be super, super annoying. They're in the way, a lot of the time. And so, like when you're behind and you're pulling your bag and you're trying to like figure out, where is the sign for the railway and where am I going? Like, just step over to the side. Like, please do that. Again, please don't be that person. We've all seen that person. I have luckily not been that person because I don't like those people. But please don't do that. Like, make sure that even if you don't know where you're going, it's fine. You're a tourist, you're on vacay. Most of the people around you are not going to be on vacay. And so make sure that you make their life a little bit easier. by not pulling your third leg, not pulling the rolly bags all the way trailing behind you. It gets really annoying, gets in people's way, people can trip over it. I know that it's not something that people think about a lot, but as someone who has lived in a place that, you know, was super busy all the time with lots of tourists, they don't know where they're going, they're pulling their bag behind them. It's super annoying. Please don't do that. You know, you can do it, like pull your bag behind you, but don't just like stop in the middle of like where you're going and try to be figuring everything out. Step over to the side, figure it out. You'll get there eventually. The other thing too is if you want to be a good tourist is to tip. And I know that different cultures coming from different places have different sort of rules on this. So I would just say that, you know, if it's outside of your cultural norm to tip, maybe, you know, you try and figure out what is normal where you're going. But more and more countries now, you know, they consider tipping to be a good thing. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is, you know, if you're coming to a place like the United States, you typically have to add the tip. And Americans as a whole are generally good tippers. Like that is something that I remember when I first went to the UK, like people would be surprised, like when I would just, you know, hand them like 10 pounds, they'd be like, oh, like, you know, like Americans, such good tippers. That we have a good reputation for that. So, you know, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well, but that's something that we're known for. And again, because it's sort of expected in our culture, like most places you go, you tip, whether it be your Uber, whether it be, you know, your, you know, grocery delivery, whether it be at the local Starbucks or something like that. Like tips are just a part of our culture. Whereas in a lot of, for example, European countries and a lot of countries that are, you know, in places like the Middle East, China, things like that, other places, you know, around the world, a lot of times it's just gratuity, right? And so it's already added. And so that's another thing that you want to look out for. Like you can, you know, definitely research, do your research, read and figure out how that typically works in the country that you're going to. But if it is added gratuity, you know, you can always add more to that. So whatever is included, you can always add more. I definitely recommend that if the service was good. If it was not so good, you know, and a lot of times you can't get away from the gratuity that's already added, just don't add anything else. But definitely if you had good service, you can add more gratuity as well. And, you know, like just find other ways to definitely be, you know, appreciative and thankful for the people that are helping you. We definitely always want to look out for, you know, people that have, you know, those thankless jobs of, you know, maybe they are a bellhop or there's something like that. You know, just be kind and like just give them a little bit of a tip. You'd be surprised, like a lot of people that are working in these jobs, you know, like they depend on these tips to sort of supplement their income because they may not be making a lot. So you definitely want to think about it that way. And it's just going to help your overall sort of morale as you're traveling through, you know, this country that you're visiting. So definitely consider doing that as well. So those are just some of my sort of tips that I wanted to add on for how you can be a good tourist when you're not trying to be a local, right? So you definitely want to just consider, you know, these tips and more as you're going through your travels. You know, it's so exciting when you study abroad, no matter where you're studying. If you are studying on any of the continents, any country, basically, for the most part, you're going to get to see so much, and you're going to have an opportunity to travel to other cities, maybe other nearby countries. Maybe if you're in a place like Europe, you get to see so much in such a little bit of time. And so it's really exciting. But, you know, if you're able to sort of at least, you know, try and assimilate in and at least make the best of it and not, you know, leave a bad impression no matter where you're going, you're going to have an opportunity to look back on it with a great experience and at least say, you know, I got to go there. I had a great time. I learned some of the different cultures and customs, and I definitely want to go back soon. So I hope that this was helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.